Hi, everyone. Welcome back to episode 2 of Tarot Talk with me, your host, Kawana Antoinette. This week, I'm really excited. We have a really special guest. I have been following her for I think over a year. I've been following her for a really long time, and I've been very fascinated with her work, specifically on Twitter. She has a YouTube platform as well, but she posts messages for the collective using the zodiac and all 12 signs. I would say her style of offering intuitive guidance is very gentle, also very effective, and she's very reliable. She's like always there. I don't know how she gets the energy to constantly put out messages, but I would say she's very, very reliable, very accurate. And just it's very shocking how much detail she can get into in very general messages. So today we will be recording the episode to honor her privacy. And with that said, please help me welcome Aura Rose.
Hi,
Hi,
Tawana.
Aura. Hello.
Hello.
How are
Thank you.
you?
I'm well. How are you? Thank you so much for inviting me here and for inviting me onto your wonderful podcast. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so grateful, truly blessed to be here with you today. And just thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I know we spoke briefly on the full moon in Capricorn. For the both of us having major Capricorn placements, I feel like this has been a very full circle moment for me. So I've been pretty good. How have you been?
Yeah, I know we did speak about this briefly. I've been well, I've been good. I've been riding the roller coaster of the energies, as we all are, during these times. And the full moon in Capricorn, which we had recently, was quite a biggie for me. It definitely impacted me on a deeper level than I've been impacted by for a while. So, but it's been great. It was profound. A lot of illuminations, a lot of revelations, a lot of clearing. Because we are also in Cancer season as well, so there's a lot of clearing of repressed emotions and things that are really stuffed down deep, just bringing it all out. So it's all good, and yeah, we're just here vibing with the energies. So I'm truly grateful for it all.
Perfect. Love that. All right. So before we jump in, I would just like to hear a bit more about you from your words. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell us a bit about yourself, whatever you're comfortable revealing. Of course, we have your name, but where are you from, your background, how long you've been doing this work, and kind of an introduction to how you would describe the work that you do.
Yeah, sure. I'm Aura Rose. I'm from the UK, and my background is completely different. I grew up not in the realm of spirituality, and so my earlier years before I spiritually awakened and dived into this wonderful world was completely different. And so I started off my studies in the creative arts. So I basically come from a creative background. I've always been very creative, very artistic. And so I followed this direction when it came to career. And I studied fine art and photography. I did my degree, graduated in photography. And that's where I started my working life. That's where I started my career as, in the digital world and the creative world. And it kind of like what happened from there was, unfortunately, I had quite a negative experience with basically my first job from graduation. And unfortunately, that led to a decline in my health. And so, quite early on in my working career, I chose the direction to become self employed and start my own business. And that's where I started my own business in the digital creative world and field, outsourcing, building client bases, and basically working for myself. And that's something that made me feel a lot more comfortable, working for myself, working for multiple different clients, and just kind of like getting that variety, but also having the autonomy and flexibility to be able to do things in my own flow. And yeah, that's basically where my career started, my life started. And so going into spirituality, I didn't actually have my initial awakening, although I've always had spirituality within me. Um, it never fully awakened until early 2019, the start of 2019. And that's when I started, I would say, my spiritual journey in terms of consciously evolving, um, and being an active participant consciously in spirituality. And that's when I began tapping in and awakening and also strengthening my abilities. So I suppose we're in 2020. Yeah, so it's been about 4 years now, basically. It's been over 4 years since I've awakened my abilities, been tapping into them, evolving, learning, and advancing them.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining all of that. I'm very fascinated by your specific style of reading. And so I just want to know before we even jump into that, how would you describe your style of reading? Because based on like the information that you have put out, I have read that you would describe your specific way of channeling messages as like mediumship and being a medium. So, how did you kind of discover that about yourself? And what has that journey been like exploring that specific gift?
Yeah, so basically, the term, when it came to labeling myself, I've always been very uncomfortable with labeling myself, in terms of what I do label myself at the moment, which is an intuitive medium. And I think I felt uncomfortable because I didn't want to mislead anyone in terms of, what it is that I do and what it is that I can do, because there are lots of varied different kind of like avenues of mediumship and what it is to kind of be psychic. And so when I was doing some training, way back at the beginning of my spiritual journey, when I was trying to evolve my abilities, the mentor I was working with at the time, after we'd finished the training, I said, "So what am I? What can I label myself? How do I describe to people what it is that I do?" And obviously, we have to put a label on it because people need to understand what it is that we do. And she said, "You're a psychic medium." And I was like, "Oh, me, a psychic medium? Oh God, I don't know." So I had a lot of kind of like limiting beliefs and kind of like barriers in feeling comfortable in even like labeling myself as that. But also, I also realized there was a lot of connotations about being a psychic medium and what it was. And so I wanted to make sure that it's translated correctly to people and they weren't getting confused. And I felt a psychic medium was someone who, for me, my limiting kind of like viewpoints back then was that, it was someone who spoke to spirits, passed on grandmas and grandfathers and all that kind of stuff. And then it is, but it also isn't as well. It varies. And so the word psychic as well always made me feel like fortune telling, that kind of thing. And that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a fortune teller. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just not what I wanted to do. That's not the path that I'm supposed to take, at least not right now. Um, and so it was kind of like, what do I call myself then? Because, like, for example, in a Twitter bio, you only have so many characters to describe yourself, what it is that you do. So you have to make it short and sweet. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to go for intuitive medium. Because yeah, I do connect to the higher realms with the mediumship. I connect to the spirit world, when I connect with spirit guides, angels, etc. But I also use my intuition a lot, and I felt like intuition was more kind of able to understand more than psychic. And like I said, I didn't want to kind of make people confused about or mislead people on what it was that I did. And so yeah, that's what I came to the conclusion of with intuitive medium. And I forgot the original question now after going off on that tangent.
No, I love that. I love everything that you said, and I have a couple questions for you to ask. I have a couple questions to ask you based on what you said a while ago. But my original question was, how did you discover that you were a spiritual medium? And you basically answered that. I love the fact that you said you connected with your mentor who has probably been putting years of work into this specific area. I love that you mentioned that, and I want to go into that briefly because I think a lot of misconceptions about this kind of work, psychic medium, intuitive, whatever we kind of label ourselves in this space, is that you just like decide that you're a psychic and you just start receiving messages, and a lot of that seems very vague and um, can be looked at as pretentious from people who are not in this world. So I just want to take a moment to like go into what mentorship kind of looks like or looked like for you. I don't know if you're still in connection with your mentor, because for me, before I was able to go into like the world of tarot and metaphysics and intuition and being an intuitive or whatever we would call ourselves, because I feel like all of these labels are kind of limiting anyway. Um, I had to go through like training that was not able to be seen by the average person. I had to connect with several different mentors, ones that I met in person, ones that I met online, to be able to like go into this world. Like, yes, you are gifted, but you are also, I guess, required to develop the skill from people who have learned and people who have lived experience. So tell me a bit more about like your relationship with your mentor. Are you still receiving mentorship? What did that mentorship look like? How invaluable was that as an experience for you developing your gifts?
Yeah, sure. I think some people think that, you can only be a medium or, a psychic or an intuitive because you were born with it and you kind of like have always been able to see spirits. And, there are people that are like that, which is absolutely fantastic. People who kind of develop that from an early age and their families encourage it, their mother encourages it, their grandmother encourages it, their auntie or whatever it is. But there's also, I mean, first and foremost, we're all able to do this. Everyone is able to be an intuitive. We all have intuition, and we're all able to master and harness these abilities of the clairs, clairvoyance, claircognizance. Some are more kind of like open to it than others, but if we want to study it, if we choose that direction, if we choose that path, we can all open ourselves up to this. But it does take work and it does take dedication. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes, really putting energy into it and resources into it as well. And that mentor that I mentioned, from kind of like the start of my awakening when I started to kind of like look into it, they're not a mentor currently or anymore. I think for me, that was just kind of like a mentor at the time that was just passing through just what I needed at the time. I do have kind of like a mentor now who I would describe as a mentor for me. I have a lot of sessions with her. She is a shamanic practitioner. A shamanic practitioner, and I work with her a lot, do a lot of readings, cleansings, healings, activations, all that kind of stuff I do behind the scenes on a regular basis, just to kind of, keep my spiritual self. I'm wanting to say up to date, kind of. It's almost like up to date software, almost, if that makes sense. Because we're all constantly learning, and I feel like, especially because I've got a client base, I have my own clients and services that I offer. I want to keep on top of what it is that I offer, elevate myself, evolve myself, so that I can become even better and better and better at what I do. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's kind of like it's like with anything that you're learning, you have to master it and you become better at it the more that you do it. And I found that that's been the case for me. And although throughout my life I've been very intuitive, I've always had the sensitivity to when I walk into a room. As a young child, even I could sense the energies, whether it was like a bad energy, good energy, if people have been arguing, or that kind of intuition that you have deep within you. But I never thought much of it. I didn't realize what it was. And so at the time for me, this mentor that I've mentioned, it was really kind of, it was to evolve my abilities, but I feel more so it was to I needed someone to tell me that what I was doing was channeling because I didn't understand it. Like I said, I awakened properly in 2019 and I was just thrown into this world and I had to learn very fast. I had a lot of experiences. It was very intense and so I think for me, it was more validation. And it actually turned out that I was already doing everything that the mentor was. I basically paid the mentor in the course to teach me. But that was fine because it gave me the confidence and the validation that okay, I am doing this. This is what you're doing, or you are on this path. And it was almost like looking at myself from an outside perspective, like because this was just still crazy to me that this is what I was doing, like this completely different to my life before. And so I had to kind of reframe myself and my mind and my vision of who I am and who I was. And it was kind of like dissolving versions of who I was, saying goodbye to versions because they're not me anymore. I'm becoming something else. I'm becoming more of who I came here to be. And so that mentorship in particular was more of kind of like validation for me, that yes, you are doing this, you are channeling. And it was kind of just like fine tuning, like tweaking, giving me some extra tips, like validating, yes, your spirit guides are right beside you now. They're to the right of you. What is it that they're telling you right now? And so I would say what was coming through, and she would just be like, yes, she'd be validating it. And so that's basically what that training was for me at the time. And that kind of like was just one of the things that I've dived into in terms of developing my abilities. I hope that
Thank
makes
you.
sense.
No, that makes a ton of sense. I've just been listening to your story and like connecting it to my own and connecting it to the experiences that I've heard within my community of people that do this work. And it's very similar because I think when I think about my own spiritual journey, I've had mentors before I even realized that I was receiving mentorship from them. And it was just exactly what I needed at that particular time. And I ended up cycling out of their orbit or them cycling out of my orbit just to be redirected to the next mentor that would give me exactly what I needed at that moment in time too. I was listening to someone recently. I think it was I would say probably even like a guide to me. She's not necessarily a mentor, but like a guide. Her name is San from San Tarot on YouTube. She said something recently that really, really resonated. She said in one of her readings that any good mentor kind of expects that their mentee will evolve past them eventually. And I thought that was so great because that's the point of mentorship. Like somebody's not going to be the student forever. They're going to have to like graduate at some point. And a healthy mentor mentee relationship is acknowledging that this may serve this person for right now. And I'm like establishing this person, helping this person establishing building blocks, but they'll eventually like orbit beyond me. Mentorship isn't necessarily something that ties you to someone for the rest of your life, but it's just for the moment and for what you need in that specific moment. So I love that. I think for my own experience, I have had so many different mentors. At the current moment, I don't have a personal mentor who I connect with, but I think different people and guides that I would say I'm connecting with at this point in my spiritual journey. That I'm able to like learn a lot from. But 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I had to do cohorts. I had to do like um, training sessions online. I had to like, I needed that moment, like you said, of validation because I was coming into so much awareness and coming into so many gifts that I was exploring. And I needed somebody who was more trained and more advanced to kind of help me navigate through all of the newness. So, really, really understood and felt what you said about your experience with mentors.
Yeah, definitely. 100% I can relate to that. And it's so true. It's like with any relationship in life, not everyone's supposed to be with us for the whole journey. And it's okay to kind of get what you need from each other and then just release and move on. And, you know, that comes from a good mentor, someone that doesn't want to cling on to their students and kind of keep, taking them for, keep paying me for this, keep paying me for that. But just doing it for genuine reasons and just wanting to help, wanting to train people, wanting to help people evolve on their journey and just releasing them. It's kind of like the mother hen, isn't it? With their little
Absolutely.
ducklings that grow up and then they become an adult and who they are. And I feel like that's like that with mud mentorship as well, definitely.
No, absolutely. Absolutely like a mother duck. And it goes into like healthy and unhealthy versions of mentorship. I'm a really realistic person. I have a lot of earth placements. So I like to talk about the good and the bad sides of things just because I think information is awareness. Information is power, and if you are navigating this space, it's such a non-traditional space that you need to know the good sides and the bad sides. So just like there are people who use tools like tarot to capitalize off of people, and like there are bad sides of that, there are also people who are really doing this work to try to uplift the collective and leave the world in a better place than they came and saw it. So I always like to like recognize that duality, and that duality exists in mentorships as well. Because I have had mentors that have been kind of sketchy. The relationship is kind of weird. And when it's time to evolve, it doesn't necessarily feel like they are encouraging of that. So yeah, I'm all about mentorships, and also want to just drive home that there is such a thing as a healthy mentor mentee relationship and an unhealthy mentor mentee relationship. So I want to jump into the next question here because I think I am still so curious about the differences between like channeling and the differences between gifts. And I know these are all labels, but they kind of help with providing some amount of understanding and framework around the work that we do. So I have done my own research here. And for the viewers who are curious and the listeners who are curious about mediumship and what that is, I've pulled up a definition. This definition is from Britannica. And the definition of a medium is a person reputably able to make contact with the world of spirits, especially while in a state of trance. A spiritualist medium is the central figure during a seance and sometimes requires the assistance of an invisible go between or control. During things like seances, disembodied voices are said to speak either directly or through the medium. Materialization of a disembodied spirit or of a specific part of a human body can allegedly take shape from a mysterious viscous substance called ectoplasm. Ectoplasm, hope I'm saying that right, that exudes from the medium's body and subsequently disappears by returning to its original source. All right, so that's the traditional definition of a medium, which the value of having you here on this show is showcasing that mediumship and spiritual gifts can look like different things for different people because you're identifying as a medium, as a psychic medium or an intuitive medium, but not necessarily doing this work of connecting with spirits and using, I guess, your body as a vehicle for communication. And so I guess I am curious, have you seen this version of mediumship and what has that looked like? And do you have any interest in perhaps investigating this kind of mediumship in the future? Are you curious about it? Is it like a hard no? What are your personal feelings on that?
Yeah, so what you described is also what I come across as well when I Google, what is it to be a medium? What is a medium? And I did come across there are two different types of medium. There's a mental medium and a physical medium. So what you described with like the ectoplasm would be someone who is a physical medium who has physical responses. And I feel it's also someone who can really tap into, for example, let's just use a spirit who used to be in a physical human body, but they've passed on, but for some reason they're still around. They've not fully crossed over, and they might connect with a medium who picks up how that person passed over. So, for example, if they've had a heart attack, the medium would feel physical pain in the heart. And so I feel that that's, from my understanding anyway, what it is to be a physical medium. And then there's the mental medium who kind of gets
I think like the
messages.
sorry to cut you. I just had a thought. Teresa from Long Island Medium comes to mind. Are you familiar with that show?
No, I'm not actually.
Oh,
No.
I love her.
Wow.
She's a psychic medium from Long Island, and I think she channels spirits, and she always like connects it to her physical body on like, if let's just say the person died of lung disease or lung cancer or something, or they had like something that actually
Yeah.
damage their physical body, like a car accident, and they lost like a limb or something. Like she would connect with that feeling via feeling the limb that she has hurting or aching or something. And I guess that's how she like connects to their passing and like communicates that information to the recipient. So I just think she was a great example. But sorry to cut you, please go ahead.
No, that's fine. I've not heard from her actually. If you've messaged me about her, I'll go and check her out because that sounds really interesting. Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, the other part is the mental medium, which gets information more mentally, without kind of like that evidence. And so, have you heard of James Van Prague by any chance?
I
Yeah.
have connected with his work via Hay House, and I think he is the most animated and just playful spirit. I really connect with him and like him a lot.
Yeah, so he's really lovely. I like his energy as well. And I really like the way that he describes what it is to be a psychic, what it is to be a medium. So I'll just share that because that might help the audience as well to kind of like wrap our heads around, the difference, because I understand it can be, confusing. There's so many different definitions. But James describes how everybody's born with a psychic ability and has a psychic ability at some level, which basically means that everyone is born with intuition. So a psychic is aware of the energy that we all have. They can tune in to the energy around a person, a place, or thing. And they can also tap into the energy of the past, the present, or the future. Now, a medium is someone who is also very psychic, but is also able to tune in to a higher level of awareness energetically. They need to have a strong sense of psychic ability and intuition. And not only that, but they can tune into a higher frequency of energy. So they basically become the intermediary between the spirit world that vibrates at a much quicker rate of energy and the physical world, which vibrates at a slower rate. So the medium is in between the spirit world and the physical world. And that's where the term medium comes from, being in the in between. So not every psychic is a medium, but every medium is a psychic, if that makes sense. So taking your psychic abilities and up leveling them to be a medium just means that you're basically tuning into those higher frequencies, those higher realms. And that's basically what it is to be a medium here. Um, and so I feel like when you're a medium, you're able to tap into the other frequencies, the higher realms, the other dimensions, or the levels of existence, however you like to describe it. I feel like you can choose and intend as to what entity, if you will, you want to contact. So that's where you get mediums who contact or tune in with and connect with past on loved ones, someone's grandma, for example. And then you get someone like myself who chooses not to do that, instead chooses to connect with spirit guides and angels and, those entities of high vibration who are on, the higher planes of the dimensions, and then you're going into elementals, unicorns, all that kind of stuff. And then I also channel directly through to source as well. So we're getting to the core of the situation, getting to the truth. And that's something that I choose and like to focus on, at least at this point in time, anyway. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. I love the okay, lots to pick apart. All right, so the first thing that you said is that I love the fact that you are differentiating the I guess the kinds of entities that you connect with and how you consider them in terms of the vibration that they hold and the frequency that they hold. Because, like you, I also don't connect with spirits. I feel like, actually, on a personal level, I will say that I connect with the spirits that have passed on for me, but just for me, just in my
Mm.
own life. I am not open to connecting with anybody else's spirits, any unwanted spirits, any unwelcome spirits. And I think at the beginning of the exploring of my own spiritual gifts, I made that eternally abundantly clear to my guides. I was not open to it. Um, I very like I intentionally asked for an experience that did not scare me, that nothing low, nothing dark, nothing negative connects with me. I was really, really, I guess it was important for me to be eased into this world and not scared into this world. And so I had a really like intentional moment with my guides that this is what I want and this is what I don't want. I'm not ready for this. And so I don't think those, I have opened myself up to connecting with spirits just generally. So I wouldn't say that there are spirits that are able to penetrate my energetic bubble and so they don't bother me. But like, for example, my great grandma passed 2 years ago, and I connect with her spirit very easily. I can call on her, I can sense her, I can smell her. I have a really, really deep connection with her. My granddad's spirit, who my granddad passed on when I was really, really young. And I know specifically when I'm working with my granddad as a spirit guide, he usually works with me in relationships that I have, any intimate relationships that I have. If somebody just goes like that out of my life, I know that it's my granddad, like working in my life. I smell him. I'm aware of him sometimes. Like if I'm in a room, I just know that either one of them are there. Like I can sense their energy in very different ways, and I don't know how I do that, but I just know like who I'm working with at what time. So on a personal level, I'm able to work and connect with them, but I'm not able to connect with anybody else's spirits. I'm not able to connect with anybody else's passed on loved ones. And so for me, that's how I kind of work with that. I love the fact that you identified that there are higher frequency beings like ascended ones, ascended masters, angels, spirit guides, that hold a higher level of frequency than just like passed on spirits. Not to say that passed on spirits are of a low vibration or negative in any way, but there are higher vibrational frequencies that I feel like give us more big picture information and big picture guidance. Um, I guess more so on a collective level for the whole versus like the individual. So I really like that. But for you, have you experienced like, I know you don't work with spirits in general, but like me, have you experienced like your own like orbit of spirits that you connect with? Like if there has been any passed on friend or passed on loved one that has connected with you personally, are you able to like recognize that spirit and like work with them in any way?
Yeah, firstly, thank you so much for sharing your story. That's so beautiful, that your great grandmother come through to you and, connected with you, and how you're able to connect with your past on loved ones. I think it's truly such a blessed experience. And, because we've already kind of developed these abilities, we're already tapped into those energies, we are going to get passed on loved ones who do want to come in and say, knock, knock, hi, how you doing? It's me. I can see you. I'm proud of you. And that's always going to happen. And so thank you for so much for sharing that. And I can truly relate to that as well, because yes, it has happened to me. And yeah, I'm getting tingles as I'm saying this now. It's always that kind of tingle moment of like, wow, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, it's such a blessing, truly. And yeah, it's happened to me with my nan. She's came through to me before, and I could just feel that she was there. And I started to communicate with her. I was using the cards. I was just speaking out loud to her. I was waiting for responses. I was using pendulum, all that kind of stuff, and we had like a full on conversation. It was so lovely. And then 2 days later, my sibling put in our family group a picture of my nan, our nan. and said, basically, it was the anniversary of when she passed, and I was unaware of that. And basically, she'd come back to say hi, check in, and obviously, I was now doing what I was doing, and she was able to communicate with me. And I said, "Have you been to see the others?" And she said, "Yes." Did they know you were there? No, they didn't. They didn't feel her. They couldn't feel her because they just like you and I, they and who can tap into these energies or who allow themselves to tap into these energies. Because you don't have to be a trained psychic medium to sense your past on loved ones. It's something that we all have within us if we just allow ourselves to feel it, right? And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
I have had those experiences. And also, I was doing a reading for my husband one time, and I was doing an angel reading, and I felt like a male presence come through, and I felt like it was like a family member who had passed on. And so I said it in the reading. I said, I feel like I've got a passed on family member here, male. I think it might be your grandfather. And then fast forward about 3 or 4 weeks later, I booked him a session with a medium that I go to every now and then who I can trust. And I booked him a session, and she said, "Your grandfather's been around you." And I was like, wow,
Wow.
okay. So it confirmed it. I was like, I did pick up on his grandfather. And I think for my husband as well, it was like, he's been so supportive, but it's at the same time, it's new to him who I am now, who I have become. And so he supports me, but that validation for him that yes, I am tapping into these energies, it is real, it is actually happening. It was quite a moment. And so yes, it does happen. And occasionally, if I'm doing a reading, either I can sense that maybe there's a pass on loved one around. And if it's a really important message and my guides, allow it through, then that's fine. But it doesn't normally happen because when I do my pre-reading rituals, I don't intend to connect with spirits. That's not my intention. But like I said, if it's a really important thing that wants to come through, it sometimes does, but it can be quite a rare occasion that comes through for a personal reading or a client reading. But on a personal level, for
Absolutely.
me, like you, yes, it can happen 100%.
Are you familiar with the work of Robert Monroe?
No, I don't think I've heard of him.
He is, I would say, well researched. I think he's a scientist. He is into that world. He created this his body of work based around like research of um out of body experiences and
Oh,
spirits
right.
connecting with us, I guess, while we're still in this earthly plane. So I would recommend, and for the audience, if you're interested in this kind of work, or I will send this to you personally as well. He wrote a really great book called Far Journeys, and I think there's another one called Ultimate Journeys, which is really, really, really good for like talking about like out of body experiences and like spirits who are like watching us from their own like space wherever they're occupying in the universe at this point in time and wanting to connect with us, and like there being like this moment of recognition where they would send something familiar to us, like a familiar scent, or they would communicate with us via thoughts like we are thinking of them, and that's not a coincidence. So I think that's really, really great work to kind of explore to understand this area more. And there's also another book that I think has been really, really helpful. Michael Newton. Um, I think his books are Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls. Are you familiar with any of those?
No, I'm not, but thank you so much for sharing these. I really
I
want to check
will,
these
yeah,
out.
I will send all of these to you. These are really, really great. But and I know, like, I love research, I love learning, and it sounds like you do too. So, for anybody that's interested in these, check out Michael Newton's work and Robert Monroe's work. Their books available on like Google, Amazon, Audible, Libby, wherever you listen and read your books, and or I will send them to you personally.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. So, jumping into your specific gifts and your specific type of mediumship, what does it feel like for you? You briefly went into it a while ago, went into your work saying you don't usually connect with people's like personal spirits, but you like get more like higher vibrational messages from the elementals and from guides and angels and things like that. But what does that feel like for you? What happens when you are channeling, if you could describe it? And how does that information come, if you could describe it?
Yeah, of course, because it's so difficult. It's so difficult to describe. It really is. The only way I could describe it really in terms of people trying to understand how it kind of feels like being plugged in. It's almost like you're plugged in and it's like, okay, you're connected. Like, so you just kind of like use the analogy of like your phone, your cell phone, mobile phone, plug it into the charger and you just get that oomph of like energy coming through, right? And so it's like being plugged in. So I do all my necessary preparations, my rituals, my connecting, all that kind of thing. And then basically the information just kind of like flows. It just flows to me. And so when I'm doing a reading, whether it's, you know, a collective reading, whether it's for my social media, Twitter, YouTube, or whether it's a personal reading for a client, the messages just flow out, just come out through my voice. I just start speaking. And so I use cards as, at least at the moment, I use cards. Because I enjoy them. I've got an obsession with collecting card decks. I absolutely love it. And also because it just helps me focus. It just helps me focus. I'm very visual as well. So I love looking at the pictures, the illustrations, the colors, the energies that I gain from those cards. And then the messages just start flowing. They just come out of my mouth and I just start talking. So when I'm doing collective readings that I typed, so for example, on my Twitter, I don't really use audio or video at the moment. I use like texting for tweets. It just kind of comes out of my fingers. I just keep just typing, and it's I guess so it's more mental. It's more in my mind, and it just kind of comes. It flows out in whichever medium I'm wanting to focus on. Um, at that point in time. And I do also sometimes channel directly through angels and guides as well. So, for example, if I'm doing a reading, either if it's on my YouTube or in a personal reading, I sometimes connect to the guide, the angel, directly. So, for example, I'd say something like, "We love you and we see your progress." Okay. Instead of saying, your guides want you to know that they love you and that they see your progress. So it kind of happens directly sometimes where they literally use me as a channel to speak through me. And that either happens when I choose it to, or it can sometimes happen spontaneously. And so I'll just be speaking like, your guides want you to know this. And then all of a sudden it's almost like I change channel or something happens and I just start speaking, but it's not me who's speaking, if that makes sense. And it's like the guide takes over or the angel takes over or the being takes over. And it's like they start speaking. And that actually happened to me in a client reading just last week. Spontaneously, I was just channeling. And then all of a sudden I started channeling from the perspective of the spirit guide. And so it's always very profound when that happens. It's always very magical. It feels like you can feel the shift in the energy, that like the tingles go through your body, like full body tingles. And so that's how I can channel as well, and that's sometimes how it feels. But overall, I just use all of my clairs. So basically, I have all four of the clairs. So that's clairvoyance, which shows me visions and pictures in my mind's eye. So, for example, I'll just see a vision of like, for example, a waterfall, and I have to tune into the waterfall and focus on that waterfall and be like, okay, so what is that waterfall trying to tell me? What is the message here? And then it comes through that way. I also have claircognizance, which is where you just kind of like know things without understanding. It's just kind of like a mental, yeah, I just know that. I just know that that's fact. I also have clairsentience where I feel things. So it's often that gut feeling that you have in your sacral and solar plexus area. And that's where people just say, I feel it in my gut. I can just feel it in my gut. And it's something that we all have within us. And that's clairsentience. We just feel it. We just feel it deep within that this is what it is. And so that's a good way of describing clairsentience, that, like I said, most of us have it. You know, we have that gut feeling. It's just whether we choose to listen to it or not. And even me, I don't always listen to my gut feeling. Sometimes I doubt it or I go against it, and I always regret it later. And then there's clairaudience as well, which is clear hearing. So this doesn't necessarily mean that you hear literal voices, although it can be for some people. But it's more of that inner voice. So, for example, I can think of a really good example here. One day I was just relaxing downstairs in the lounge, chilling, watching TV, going on and off my phone. And I just had this something said to me, you need to go and check on your cats. You need to go and find your cats, okay? And they used my cat's name and they were like, you need to find them. You need to go and check on them. And I was like, okay. So something made me get up, go and walk up the stairs and try and find my cat. And basically, long story short, I found my cat moments before having a very serious accident that would have led to my cat not being here anymore in the physical. And I was able to save them. And so something
Wow.
just said to me, go and find your cat. You need to go and find them now. And so I can't even describe how it happened. I feel it was like angelic interference, like an angel told me. Um,
Wow.
it was just profound. It was powerful, and so it saved their life basically. And so I feel all of us on some level have those communications, but we don't necessarily listen to them, or sometimes we do, sometimes we doubt them. We just think it's our own mind just talking to us, and sometimes it can be, but then other times it really is something deeper. And I feel like the more we individually explore this and dive deeper and allow ourselves to open up and receive these communications and messages and quieten our minds to be able to tune in, I feel like the more we can all kind of like get to these, to access these energies, if that makes sense. And it's really just such a beautiful thing. It really is powerful. So I hope that's answered your question.
No, that's more than answered the question. I love the fact that you went into the different clairs. I think that's so helpful for people who may not necessarily be as familiar with like spirituality or spiritual gifts. The clairs are a helpful way to kind of describe how information is received by you. So thank you for going into that. I do want to emphasize and just highlight the fact that you have said on so many occasions that we are all in some way capable of having psychic gifts, having a strong intuition. Like we all have that, because I feel like a lot of times this work is kind of like idealized, like you can do this and you have this kind of gift. But really and truly, we all are capable of it. It's just for me, I like to say that it is how much of you are you willing to separate from to keep the vessel as empty as possible. That's how I like to kind of describe it, because I
Mm,
think for a lot of this work it involves receiving messages and channeling information that can be so other to you, like it can be so different from who you are as a person. You need to remove as much of your ego in that process as possible, and I do believe that the ego is helpful. I don't think that we can get rid of our egos. They're helpful to have a 3D human experience, but as much of the ego as you can get rid of while you are doing this work to receive whatever information you need to receive and to use that information to the benefit of yourself or benefit of others is like the process of effectively using your intuition and your psychic gifts. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, does this connect
yeah,
with you?
100%. I totally get what you're saying. Ego is something that's very normal, and I feel like it's very much got a negative connotation to it. Oh, you're in your ego. It's like, well, yeah, we all have our ego, and we all slip into our ego sometimes. And the point is, do you recognize when you've slipped into your ego? That's the point. And if we're recognizing it, then that's great, because we're at that higher level of awareness where we're seeing, okay, I'm reacting from my ego right now. That's why I'm feeling frustrated. That's why I'm winding myself up. I just need to come back to myself and just recognize that. And I feel like when you recognize it, it almost kind of like fades away, and you're able to have that different perspective. And
And go ahead.
yeah, no, that's all I was going to say really. And yeah.
I was going to say too, when you're able to separate from the ego, then you can receive information and actually use that information to change, to adjust, to pivot, to
Mm,
enhance, to stop, to start, to whatever that information is guiding you towards, which is what your intuition is. It's information, it's extrasensory information that you are picking up on from nonverbal things in your environment. Like something inside of you is picking up on what is not being communicated. So if you are able to like pivot when you get that information and not be like, oh, like I'm too tied to an outcome, or I'm too tied to my identity, or I'm too tied to whatever I believe to find this information valuable or helpful or even recognize that it's my intuition. I feel like that's how you kind of navigate through like psychic awareness and
mm.
psychic gifts. But moving on to our next question. You briefly talked about preparing for like channeling, and my question to you is, what does that look like? Um, to be more specific, I know for me, the way that I prepare for channeling is through meditation, but I also like to use sound. I like to use sound cleansing. I also like to connect with the air element of like cleansing my physical space. So, what does preparation look like for you when you're about to get into like mediumship work?
Yeah, I love that you shared that. Music is a huge one for me, actually, massively. Like, music is everything to me. Like, I've always got something playing in the background, peaceful music, relaxation, frequency music. I just love frequency music. So that's a really good way of getting into the zone, if you will, of being able to start a reading, channeling, bringing through information. So thank you for mentioning that. And I feel for me like I've definitely learned and evolved over time when it comes to um, creating my own modalities, rituals, or way of preparing, however it is you like to describe it. I've done a lot of studying, so I've taught myself a lot of reading, a lot of exploring. I've taken courses, and so over time, I've been able to build my own kind of like way of preparing when it comes to a reading. But 100% you need to cleanse, like you need to kind of cleanse your energy, make sure that you've not got any residual kind of like energies that are like lower vibration or negative that are attached to you, because you don't want it to influence. You don't want it to influence the reading that's coming through. I feel especially, because when we're doing this service, we've got like a responsibility to our audience, whether it's collectively for collective readings or whether it's for a client. There's a responsibility here to be delivering helpful information, accurate information. And you don't want to be delivering stuff that's kind of like muddied or kind of like, not going to be for the highest good. So, firstly, cleansing is really important. Getting yourself in a meditative state, like you mentioned as well, Tawana. It's great to center yourself, to meditate. That raises your frequency, you see. And if you are connecting with higher frequencies like angels, guides, they can come down so far. So if you can meet them a little bit in the middle, which again is kind of mediumship, that's helpful to be in that state. And also really setting clear intentions as well as to what you're wanting to do in this reading, who you're wanting to connect with, what you're not wanting to connect with, what you do not allow into this space. So, for example, lower vibrational entities, negative spirits, tricksters and imposters, because there are so many imposters in the spirit world pretending to be spirit guides, pretending to be past on loved ones, pretending to be angels, archangels. And so you really need to set those intentions, clear your space, cleanse your space, and, really kind of set those foundations for a reading. So that's actually absolutely imperative when it comes to me starting my readings. And then once I do that, I do my necessarily connections. So first and foremost, I connect with Gaia. I work very strongly with Mother Gaia. I ground myself. I have a lot of air placements, and so I can be very airy and in the upper chakras a lot. And so it's important to ground down because we need to be connected to the physical as well. It's not all just about the higher realms. We need to be grounded. And so I ground, I connect with Gaia, I connect with my guides, I connect with angels, I welcome in the angels that I work with. I welcome in my dragons as well. I work with my dragons to protect and clear and cleanse the energies in the space. I connect with I then go up and I connect with the sun, I connect with the moon, I connect with the stars. I connect to source directly. So it's a quite a process, but the more you do it, kind of like the quicker it becomes, if that makes sense. And then that's me kind of connected. And then if I'm connecting with a client, I then connect with a client once I've done all that. Um, and then that enables me to bring through the most accurate messages because you're connecting with them, their energy, their soul, their Akashic records, their guides, their spirit team. And so it's very intentional. And so that's basically my preparation, kind of in a nutshell. I feel I may have missed some stuff out, but that's
No, that
just
that
going
was
through it. I think,
excellent.
yeah, I think that's the best way to kind of like bullet point it, if that makes sense.
No, that's excellent. I have a follow-up question for you. So, as you were like sensing the world and like receiving messages and channeling, are you able to turn it on or off? Or do you constantly receive messages from your environment? For example, have you ever been in a situation where you're not intentionally channeling, but you do receive insight about a particular person, place, situation, and without like that being the intent at that particular moment?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those things, again, a learning process. I kind of had to learn the hard way with this. I was walking around with all of kind of like my energy centers, my chakras wide open, receiving all sorts of information, but also collecting in your energy field as well, collecting in your aura, affecting you, picking up on everyone else's energies. And it's kind of like I had to go through that, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the things that I experienced, the lessons that I learned, because it helped me learn what is my energy and what is not my energy. And I feel that that's imperative to learn as a reader, because we are opening ourselves up to all sorts of different energies, people going through all sorts of different things, trauma in their life, etc. And so I feel it's important for us to recognize when we're feeling low or down, or any negative emotion, because it's us and it's something that we need to deal with, or if it's someone else that we've connected with, right? And so I did have to go through that process of realizing that this isn't right, this isn't my energy. And so I'm glad that at the beginning I was a novice. I just dived into it, complete beginner, like did stupid things, silly things, and I learned the hard way in a lot of instances, but it taught me, right? And it made me realize that it's so important to kind of set those intentions, to clear, to cleanse, to put those boundaries in, to shield, to cloak yourself, and to disconnect and close down your chakras or energy centers. And so there's a really good example here, actually, where sometimes I forget, and you go out into the world and you forget to kind of close down everything. It happens. We all kind of do that sometimes. And I went to IKEA once, right? And I was walking around, and I don't know if you've ever been through IKEA or if it's the same in kind of like in America, but in the UK, it's like a maze and it's one way system, and you have to go all the way around the store in
It's
order
the
to get to the
same.
end. Yeah. And so I was kind of like navigating through the maze, and I walked past this group of people, and there was this man in particular, and I walked past, and we must, because it's so close proximity, I must have gone through his aura, and the feeling, it was just awful, like the rush of negativity. And I immediately felt that this person was not a good person, that they didn't do good things. And I knew everything about what this person was doing. And I got out of the shop and I was like, what just happened? Like, why was I feeling those things? Why was I thinking those thoughts that I would never think? And it was that energy. And I realized, and again, it was a learning curve for me, to realize that, how important it is to decipher between your own energy, to decipher between others' energy, and to clear yourself and to disconnect and shut down, like you're saying. And so, yeah, I have been in instances before where I've picked up on other people's energies, and you can close it down. When I'm at home, I don't always. And so sometimes I do get spontaneous downloads that come through. Often when I'm doing mundane things like household chores or Often it comes through when I'm falling asleep at night, and you're going through into kind of like your soul and your physical body are kind of like disconnecting in a way. Your spiritual body is disconnecting, and so you're able to kind of like go into more kind of the astral energies, and like ideas start to flow, and channeled messages come through as well. I also get a lot of messages in the shower. So water is a high conducer to bring through these messages as well. At least for me, I find water is massively conducting when it comes to receiving downloads and receiving messages. But yeah,
And
I hope
I've been
that's
just like moving my head because there's so many things that you're saying that also resonate with me. So I love everything that you're sharing with me right now. I love it all.
good. I'm glad I'm making sense.
No, it's so important because, like you, I've also experienced that phase where my energy, like my energetic grid, was just so open to everything, everyone. I was sensing everything, and it ended up being so overwhelming for me that I had to shut it all down and like figure out really quickly how to do that. And I
Mm,
think that is practicing good energetic hygiene. And
yes.
also it becomes abundantly clear how strong your boundaries have to be if you are, one, highly sensitive, or two, doing work in this spiritual arena. For me, I've also experienced similar things. Like, for example, I remember being in the pandemic, I was at home so much that when it became time to go back out there to like be around people again, that was a huge adjustment for me.
Yeah.
It was so huge because I felt fine at home. My energy felt fine. I was calm. I was great. But as soon as I stepped outside to be around people again, I had headaches. I was overstimulated. I was overwhelmed. I found myself either angry, agitated, or sad, depressed. For I was going through a range of emotions that were not my own, that I was picking up
Mm,
from my environment because I had not been as, I guess, as aggressive as I should have been about practicing good, like spiritual hygiene, energetic hygiene, which then I had to like get really serious about that really quickly. And you also said like you said when you're at home and you are more relaxed, there are messages that may come to you then. And I would attribute that to being in the flow state, because I think you can be in a meditative state without um intending to want to meditate. So like I think I go into a state of like a walking meditational state sometimes because for whatever reason that's just what just brings me in flow. There's certain times when I'm exercising that I go in the flow state and I don't even realize it. It's because whatever I'm doing I'm just connecting with so well, and I feel so in tune with myself, with the earth, with my body, with the universe. I feel so like at peace in that moment that things just like open up to me beyond like my intention. And so I had to get really good at practicing boundaries because I don't always want to like, there's certain times when it's very inconvenient for me to like pick up on certain things about certain people. And there's also times too where I'll be hanging out with someone and I just receive some information about them. But I have to practice good boundaries with myself because they may not necessarily need to or want to know that information, you know? So it's like
yeah.
knowing when to like speak, knowing when to share. Even if I do know something, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to share it, because awareness is like knowing the information, but wisdom is knowing when to share that. And there are also people who are not ready to receive whatever information you have to share with them. So that to me means practicing very good boundaries in how I interact with other people and how they interact with me.
Yeah, definitely. I love how you've just described that as well. Like, just because we know the information doesn't mean that we should give it out. People are ready to receive that information. And,
Absolutely.
I can completely understand, especially when you mentioned coming out of the pandemic, and, all of a sudden you were opening yourself up to kind of like all different energies, all different people. And of course, it was such an intense time for so many people in the world. And it was such an intense energy that was going on worldwide, with all of the losses that people were experiencing, all the pain. the sadness, and some people were just not dealing very well with being, in lockdowns and things like that. And so it's almost like we're kind of going out onto the battlefield after the battle. There's like a lot of damage, destruction, and all those energies are out there. And so it was understandable that you were going to be able to pick up on that and you were going to be able to feel that massively, 100%. And I feel like I'm very lucky, I'm very blessed because I work a lot from home. So I thankfully I'm not around that too much. I feel like I couldn't do a full-time job Monday to Friday in an office outside of the house. I don't think I could do that now that, I'm spiritually open and tuned. I don't think I'd want to do that. And I don't think I could physically do that. I feel I'd be drained all the time. It's incredibly draining. And so, like you said, it's really important to, build that kind of, that that ritual or kind of like arsenal, if you will, of tactics and techniques that we can use to protect ourselves, put those barriers, those boundaries up, like you mentioned, so that we don't overstimulate ourselves, we don't go crazy, because it's quite easy to slip into that energy of going into the crazy side of spirituality, and just your energy just going wild, and you really kind of have to like rein it in a little bit, ground it down. And so, yeah, I feel like you've dealt with that really well.
Absolutely. And this is like a prequel to the next question. I would say I was going to ask you, what are some of the most challenging areas of your unique type of mediumship? And I guess we are kind of going into that briefly by like being very aware of our energies and practice, or your specific experience and practicing boundary work to protect yourself. But is there anything else that you would say has been really, really challenging in this kind of work for you?
So I feel like what you just mentioned, Tawana, as well, really kind of was hitting the nail on the head there in terms of people not being ready to hear or see the truths that you can see or that you know. And so the way I channel, the way I conduct my readings is by ultimately connecting to source. And I set the intention that I am a channel for truth, for whoever it is that I'm reading for. And I'm very fortunate with my clients in that I usually attract those who are truth seekers, those who are soul seekers, those who, want to hear the truth. They want to get to the core of a situation so that they can heal, so that they can transcend, they can transform, they can evolve. But there will always be some who aren't ready to hear the truth. And I feel like maybe they feel or they think that they're ready, but then when their own visions of what they want to hear doesn't necessarily align with the truth that's coming through, it can be difficult and challenging for them. And so, like you said about discernment, about really discerning, what you're sharing and who you're sharing it with. Is this person ready to hear it? And if not, you might need to really soften the message, or just not say it at all. But sometimes, having said that, many of us are here to be triggers for others, which ultimately is the catalyst for their own awakening. And so, unfortunately for us, that can be difficult because we get a bit of backlash, but ultimately it's for their highest good. And that's why the message is coming through, even if they don't like it, it's for their highest good. And it's going to catalyze them into awakening to seeing a truth that maybe they weren't happy to see or didn't want to see or hear, but ultimately it's going to lead them onto a more optimal path or timeline for them. And so sometimes I do feel like, yes, there's discernment of if someone's ready, but also sometimes we are supposed to be that trigger for some people, especially in today's world where, more and more people are needing to wake up, more and more people are needing to kind of awaken to who they truly are. And,
Right.
and so it can be difficult. And the question was, what are the most challenging things? And that is definitely a challenging thing as a reader. And also, like you said, outside of readings, just taking reading out of this, just going about your day, being able to see the truths, like you mentioned, seeing and feeling people's true intentions or their true colors, if you will, can be very challenging because you can see someone portraying them to be something, but really then that they're not. There's something else going on there, and especially that can be especially challenging when it comes to family members,
And friends.
and friends and colleagues, where really you can sense something. They're saying something, but that they're meaning something completely different or the opposite of what they're actually saying, right? And so that is a challenge because not everything is love and light in this world. And so when you make that choice or open yourself up to be the channel or get this information or tapped in or tuned in, you are going to have to accept that there will be kind of negative things that come through. And, that leads me on to kind of like the other senses here of the knowing, the seeing, the feeling of the darkness in the world as well. I mean, we don't like to talk about it because it's negative, it's doom and gloom, but it's the reality. There's a lot of darkness in this world, particularly right now. We already touched on it with the pandemic and, people's lives being completely upturned and like the trauma that people have gone through. And so learning to tune out and close down, as we've already discovered and discussed, is so important for us. And that's definitely one of the most challenging things as well. And also for me personally, on a personal level, premonitions, seeing things on about the world. I've had premonitions before, particularly before the pandemic, through the pandemic, and also after as well, just seeing things and knowing things about the world and what might happen, or what's a potential timeline, can be challenging because it's difficult, but at the same time, it does give you a little bit of forewarning to be like, okay, I can see there's maybe an ulterior agenda here. So when this happens, or if this happens, use your own discernment, use your own discernment and on a deeper level what this is all about. And so it can be a negative and a positive, I feel, when it comes to premonitions. But yeah, that's definitely some of the challenges that I face personally.
From my own experience, I've met people who have like idealized that like spiritual gifts, so you're able to like have dreams and intuition and like psychic abilities and premonitions and whatever, but at the same time it is very taxing work because the information that is being received has no like biases to my feelings. Like I could receive something that is completely heartbreaking and have to get up and like go about my regular day the next morning, and it
Mm,
could be like very personal information or information that impacts me, but I have to just continue with that awareness with my like regular human life. So I love the fact that you said that because in my own experience realizations have not always been very pleasant, and
mm,
realizations about key people who play major roles in my life as well. Like, I would say that has been one of the most challenging areas of doing this work as an
yeah.
intuitive. It's after realize having those realizations, like having to pick myself up and go through like regular life, knowing what I know about a thing, about a person, about a situation. Like I still will have to like live my human life anyway. I will still maybe have to deal with this person anyway. I'll have to find a way to like navigate this relationship. I'll have to find a way to navigate this environment, which is not very easy. A lot of times I feel like it's actually a lot easier to go through experiences and go through the world not knowing a lot of things that I know. So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, 100%. I can completely relate to that as well. It is difficult, it is challenging, especially like you said, when it really involves us and also people that we love. We can sometimes we can have premonitions that affect someone that we love that is kind of like outside of us, but we're still connected, but we're not on that deep level. And it's
Right.
like, do you say something?
And also, like, I would have rather being surprised. Like, I would
Yeah,
have rather being surprised in this
yeah,
one instance. All
yeah,
right.
definitely.
Okay. So, next question. If you didn't do this kind of work, what would you do and why?
Oh, that's really interesting. That is really interesting. Do you know what? I feel like I would definitely be doing something that involves animals. I just love
Ooh.
animals so much. Like, especially in recent years, I've become so connected to animals and the animal kingdom, and I've got such a deep connection bond with animals. Their souls are just so beautiful. They're so pure. They're so powerful. And I just love to help them any way I could, whether that's like, I mean, I'd love to do like fostering or something like that. But at the same time, I just want to keep them all, like Noah's Ark or something. I don't know. I just like want to keep all the animals, and obviously, I couldn't. A dream world would be to have like a little island with just live with animals. I mean, that would be fantastic, but obviously, that's definitely a dream. Um, but yeah, I think it would be working with animals because they're just so pure, and I think, knowing what I know now, I mean, humans are great, but there's also not so great humans, and that can be really challenging to be around people like that. And I just physically can't anymore. I physically can't be around um humans who just don't align. They just don't resonate. And I feel like the more you go along your spiritual journey, the harder it kind of becomes in a way. And so I feel like just animals, they're just like I said, they're so pure, they're so innocent, and I would just love to work with animals. How
Absolutely.
about you? What would you do?
Um I I would have to think about that if I wasn't doing this work, which is interesting because I feel like I have one foot into like my professional career and one foot into the spiritual world. So I'm like maintaining that balance right now, which is also work.
Yeah,
That's another like
yeah.
story for another day. So I have this really like careful balance that I'm maintaining right now. And if I didn't have to like I feel like for me, if I didn't have to like have my foot into like the matrix world, like my foot into my professional traditional career, it would be this. Like I would be just fully immersed in like the spiritual world.
Mm,
I would be doing this work in various ways, whether that be writing books, sharing workshops, um, whatever that be.
yeah.
I would be really a lot more immersed in this space. And if I weren't doing spiritual work, I would probably be an entrepreneur. I would probably do be doing something else just because I feel like I've been a very creative, like innovative person in my life. I don't know if you know this or if you've seen this, but I have a menstrual cup business, which ties
Oh,
into like my idea of helping with the environment and sustainability.
wow.
So it would have to be something that like connects with humanity and the earth. I see
Yes.
myself doing various different things that really just connect with that, like helping others, helping humanity, helping the world, Gaia. I that's what I usually see for myself.
I think that's, yeah, fantastic. I didn't know that, by the way, and that's so amazing. Like sustainability like that, and because there's so many issues with like recycling and waste and just
Right.
plastics and all sorts of rubbish going into the earth, and I feel like 100%. I feel like because we are spiritually aligned, I feel like it's difficult to break free from this now, to envision ourselves doing something different.
Different.
And so that's why you're saying you would be like helping others in some way. And because, first and foremost, this is our calling, this is what we're supposed to do. And I feel like that's why it's difficult for us to think about something else.
All right. So you shared previously that you use other tools like cards and things like that. What kinds of cards do you use? Are there more oracle based? Do you use a tarot? Like, what does that look like?
Okay, so I have so many cards, like it's literally a problem. Like I've had to buy a new storage unit bookshelf thing recently to fit more cards. I don't even know how many I've got now. I mean, like 60, 70, maybe more decks.
Wow.
I know it's crazy. And I just keep buying more. It just happens. And I think for me personally, my Oracle decks outweigh my tarot. So I feel I love both, but I feel like Oracle I can explore even more with the different oracles and the different messages on the cards and the different energies. And so I do use both. I use Oracle, I use Tarot in my readings. But I feel like I lean more towards kind of like the Oracle. And I do bring through Tarot to get more information or maybe just like a foundation or just to dive in to more deeper level of what the messages are trying to say, if that makes sense. So I kind of just kind of utilize the both, I suppose.
Okay. All right. What is your favorite oracle deck right now?
Oh, wow. Okay. My favorite oracle deck right now. This changes all the time. Mm, very interesting. What's my favorite oracle? I love the Angels and Ancestors Oracle deck by Kyle Gray.
Okay.
Kyle Gray does fantastic oracle decks. I love his decks. Also, Colette Baron Reed. She's got fantastic oracle decks. Um, Wisdom of the Oracle, I'm using quite a lot at the moment. Um, Oracle of the Seven Energies is another one from Colette that's really good. Um, that's such a hard question to answer. We could literally be here for days if I was to be trying to decide.
No, I think
Um,
those are some pretty good ones.
yeah.
Those are some pretty good ones. And if you could state your favorite tarot card right now, what would that tarot card be and why?
Oh gosh, another difficult question. Okay. I actually have a couple of favorite tarot cards. I think overall, I think one of my favorites is the Hermit. Um, Aside from being a hermit myself, I completely relate to the hermit energy. Just like being in my own little space, my own little bubble, doing me, connecting with spirit. Um, that's kind of what I do. But on a deeper level, the hermit is a very close representation of my spiritual awakening. The hermit talks about being in deep isolation with no other option than to dive into your own soul to discover your true self, right? And so this is how I awaken spiritually after and during a flare up that I had with a long term health condition of mine. It was the last one that I experienced in the early 2019. And I had to go through another period of deep isolation where I was just basically kind of bedbound for about 3 months and didn't really have any interactions with anyone and really going
Wow.
deep within myself. And that's how I awakened, like that final moment of being with myself in that time is how I awakened. So I do have a very deep connection with the Hermit card. And also the star is, I'm sure a very popular one. And also represents my healing journey as well. Just kind of touching on what I just mentioned about my health condition and like having the flare ups and things like that. And, you know, it's really how when I connected to my spiritual self and I realized that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, it changed everything for me. And obviously, the star represents being connected to the higher realms, but also being connected to the earth as well. So it's those dualities, that connection, a deep healing energy. And it enabled me to take back my power when I realized that I'm just here having a human experience. There's more to my life, there's more to me, there's more to who I am and what I am experiencing. And it elevated myself, it elevated my consciousness and um, like I said, it enabled me to help who remember who I am and begin that deep healing that I needed in order to become who I am right here today. Sitting on this podcast, talking to you right now, I had to go through that deep hermit energy and that deep star energy as well with the isolation and with the healing. So that's the best way that I can describe my two favorite, ultimate favorite tarot
No, I love
cards.
those. I love both of those cards. I think that the Hermit has been connecting to me for the past couple of years,
Mm,
consistently. So I love both of those cards. All right, so what is one piece of advice that you'd like to give to persons who just discovered the gift of mediumship?
that's an interesting question. Yeah. I guess I would say I would advise them to kind of like enjoy the journey, I think. And just be open-minded as to, where it's taking you and have fun exploring and ultimately know that you have the power within you. There's nothing outside of you that has power over you or control over you. You have a say in the information you receive, whether you choose to explore it further or whether you choose to switch it off. It's up to you. Um, And so, yeah, I guess someone just discovering the ability of mediumship and connecting, um, I would say just enjoy the process and follow your intuition with what resonates for you. Be open to things changing in your life, in your reality, when it comes to um, the way that you see things, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. Um, I feel like there's a lot of healing that comes along with opening up to these abilities as well. So it's really being comfortable with that deep connection with yourself, in order to really kind of, I feel, connect most optimally. I feel as well, to do that healing work, to do that shadow work. So that, and I feel that that helps the abilities like come through even more. So yeah, I would hope that would be of help to someone.
No, that's definitely some great advice. All right, as we close the show out, I always like to ask this question. If there was any other intuitive or medium or psychic that you'd like to see or hear on this podcast next, who would that be?
Okay, so there's a channel I came across a couple of years ago now. It was a while ago on YouTube, right? And she's a very beautiful soul. Her name is Jenny Florence. Now, she's also from the UK. Her YouTube channel is called Moon Magic, Weekly Tarot Readings or something, Moon Magic Weekly Tarot, something like that. But she just got such a beautiful and peaceful energy to her, and you can really feel the genuine soul that she is. And I really love how Jenny combines her years of experience with being a counselor, with the tarot, with astrology, the moon cycles, and spirituality. She kind of like combines them all, and uses, I think she's got like almost 30 years of experience being a counselor. And so she uses that empathy. She's got such deep empathy for her listeners, for her audience, for her community, and she really wants to help. And I feel that on a deep level because that's what I want to do. That's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do, because I want to help others. I want to help to heal, to help them to see what they're here to do. And I feel that Jenny does that really well. She does that really successfully, and her channel is incredibly successful, as it should be, because she's amazing at what she does. And so yeah, I would actually really love to have a sit down and a cup of tea with Jenny Florence. Like you could just talk to her, like you and I, like we can just like vibe, we can just talk, and we could just talk for hours about all sorts of different things. And she's that type of soul that is just so deep, so old, like an old soul, right? So much wisdom, and you can tell that she's done many lifetimes doing this kind of work, and it really shows. It really illuminates through her channel, through her energy, through her videos. And so yeah, I'd be really interested to see Jenny Florence on the show.
That is amazing. I love the fact that you just took that moment to elevate Jenny and her work. I am not familiar with her work, but I think I will definitely be checking that out now. I'm just excited to check out whatever she's sharing based on that introduction. So I will definitely look up Jenny Florence.
Oh, that's really good.
I love taking a moment to elevate people doing this kind of work because I feel like it's a great opportunity for me to like share the wealth of information that I've had to work to accumulate. There weren't necessarily people who I could trust easily when I started like discovering this world of like spiritual gifts and tarot and all of this stuff. And I had to like find the people who I could really trust and the people who are really doing this work seriously and take it seriously and practicing their own like code of conduct and ethics when it comes on to like sharing abilities and sharing messages and gifts to the world. So I love when you're able to like find somebody who you really admire for the work that they're doing, kind of like how I found you, and elevating them and letting them know like you appreciate the work that they're doing, and also how they've been able to like help you and other people. So I love that. I will definitely check out Jenny's work. And I think
Amazing.
that was my last question for you today, Aura. Thank you so much for being on
Oh,
the show. I've literally only had uplifting interactions with you. And I appreciate you so much. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing for others, how you've helped me. I think if nobody tells you, I definitely want to take a moment to tell you that we appreciate all of the work that you're doing, and you're doing really great stuff. And I hope you keep doing it. I before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to like share with the listeners where they can find you and what services you currently offer.
Oh, thank you so much, Tawana, for your lovely words. They are received with such gratitude. So thank you so much. It's really, really nice to hear those words and to hear the appreciation. And I also appreciate you. Thank you so much for bringing me onto the channel, for welcoming me here, for giving me this opportunity. It's been fantastic to be with you today, and I've really thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. It's just been like a back and forth chat, you know, and it's so nice to connect with like-minded people, genuine souls who are on the same journey, share stories, share tips, new people to check out, you know. I think it's fantastic. So thank you so much. I truly appreciate you. I truly do. And if anyone wants to find me, I'm mostly on Twitter right now, at least, where I post daily content, and that's mostly where my daily activity is. I also have an Instagram. Both of those handles are Aura Rose SG, Soul Guidance, abbreviated. And also, YouTube is a main focus for me right now, where I post in depth, detailed collective readings and picker cards. And you can find me there on Aura Rose Soul Guidance. And I also have a website and online blog, aurarose.com, aura-rose.com, where you can book services with me directly on there and we can connect. And I have all sorts of different readings and services that are changing all of the time. And my offerings are for those who are wanting to dive deep. My readings are very much a deep dive into whatever wants to come through for you, or depending on what reading you have booked. So yeah, I would love to connect with anyone who feels called to connect with me. So thank you so much, Tawana. I truly appreciate you.
No, no problem at all. And thank you so much for all of your kind words as well. Guys, thank you for listening. You will be able to find this podcast via Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast. I will also, I'm not sure if I'll be uploading this to YouTube or not. I know Aura wasn't on camera, but I know that there are people who listen on YouTube and prefer YouTube over the podcasting service. So I have to figure out how I'm gonna kind of post this. But yes, if you'd like to connect in any other way with me or Aura, you can find in the description of this episode or in the description of YouTube any other information from the both of us. I will link that there. So thank you for listening today. Thank you, Aura, for being here. And I will next time. Bye.